My phone wouldn't let me flip without stopping the video. So, because it was right there in the middle, and I guess I went on too long. But otherwise, these are the replicas of out of books of music from the Middle Ages and Renaissance period. So this one is a replica from the Middle Ages. You will see that there is an intricate painting at the beginning of the song. They always did a painting. And of course, this song is probably about the birth of Christ, was probably sung at Christmas time because you can see the birth of Christ. I want to point out that the gold in the painting was real gold leaf. Of course, this is the replica, so this is not real gold. I wish I had one of the real thing. But otherwise, you will see how intricate these are. And the monks spent many, many hours on these hand painting. These particular, all music was hand done. The printing press was not in the Western world yet. I want to also point out that you can see right here that there's a clef sign here. This is the C clef sign. That means that this line right there would be the C line. That C clef is movable. Our two clefs, the treble clef and bass clef, come from this particular time period. They didn't look exactly like what we have, but you can see there's a transformation that if we had several of these in a line, that you could see how we get our treble clef and bass clef today. The treble clef was called the G clef sign, and so what happened is that it would come around the G. It looked like a G, and it came around with this little swirl thing, and so that line would be a G instead. So because we only have 4 lines to go ahead and write music on, that didn't give them enough space, and they didn't have anything like today we have what we call ledger lines, that it didn't give them enough space to go ahead and write the music. So these clef signs answered their what they needed for the music. If I go over here to this third example that I have, also a replica from the Middle Ages, you will see that the clef sign is on 2 different lines. Up here it's at the top, so that line becomes C, and that means that that note right there with that note head there would become an A. But then down on this next line, that line that was an A up here is now a C. A little bit confusing, but otherwise, really, because everything was monophonic, the music was not as complex in harmony and everything, it worked for them. As far as this next one that I have in the middle of these, this is the real one, and this comes from one of the early printing press that was done in Germany. This particular example, I had a friend, I was in Italy at the time, and it was my birthday, and she had found these in a store, and so she was very sweet and spent some money to go ahead and get me a replica of these. They're not super expensive. It probably just depends. Today, one that has the real gold leaf, like this one here, would probably run you in $2,000–3,000. This particular one off the printing, because it's not hand done, it doesn't have any artwork or whatever, they usually go for about $300 to $500. So I was very appreciative of this friend buying this for me. Here you will see that this one is from the Renaissance period, so it's much later than the Middle Ages. But you will see the clef sign there, and so the C clef kind of changes from what we had at the very beginning. So you just have the 2 little dots on each side of the C line, and then here you've got 3 little parts that it almost looks more like a C. As far as the rules of the music, it pretty much stayed the same. These particular pages would have been out of a book. You will see this one is on page 161. They would have been quite thick and quite heavy. These are all about 19 inches by 14 inches, so you can see how large. But not everybody would have their own piece of music. Everybody just received this one sheet of music. They put it high up on this stand, and everybody looked up and read the music from this. There's a picture in your textbook that has kind of shows you an example of this. And when they went for harmony, they would have 2 side stands, 4 side stands, so everybody that was singing that particular part of the harmony stood together to read the music. the hard part would be is that they didn't see the other people's notes. They only saw their own notes and had to be able to read their own notes. But otherwise, in the Middle Ages, these that were done by hand, these would have been done by the monks and completely by hand. When I was at the Getty Museum one time in Los Angeles, they had a whole special exhibit of Bibles. And they started out with the Bibles from the very first one that they have found from the Middle Ages. And it kept, you could travel around and see the difference up into the printed ones. They had them in chronological order. They were absolutely gorgeous. Some of those Bibles were 6 inches thick. If you can imagine writing all this out, look at their calligraphy. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just in perfect condition. So these men, these monks, spent many, many hours working on these, not only with the artwork, but also with just getting everything just correct on the notes and all. So I just wanted to share those with you because I think that's important to see, that we always think, music written out, or they probably didn't even know how to read music. And once they had musical notation, the monks knew how to read music. In the secular world, not too many people knew how to read this music, but some of the monks, once we started to have universities, which came around in the Middle Ages, and sorry women, we weren't allowed in the universities, only men were allowed in the universities. They studied everything in Latin, but they wrote and they were taught musical notation and by the monks, and so therefore eventually it seeped into the secular world. So I hope you enjoy. Your book only gives just a short overview of the Middle Ages. For 1,000 years, it's not much. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy this particular time period and then seeing how quickly things are going to change once we get to the Renaissance period. Have a great week, and I look forward to your assignments and all. And if you have any questions, please never hesitate to contact me. Thank you.